Hello, this is a follow-up video to my channel milestone one in which I said I would do one of 3 tests. And the votes are in. Unfortunately, it was a tie with 6 votes between 2 of them. So in a tiebreaker, I am casting the 7th one, and I'm choosing the MBTI test. But first off, I'm going to do the drawing that I said I'd do for Chivalry Medieval Warfare. Now, the poll didn't get 20 votes, but 16 is close enough in my opinion. So what we're going to do here is use random.org, which is used, as you can see, by people for online drawings and lotteries. And I took note of everyone who bothered commenting on that video. So we have 8 people, and I have set random.org, the true number generator, up for a number between 0 and 9. So number 3 is the winner. Congratulations, John Smith. Anyway, I'm using the site that I linked in the description of the channel milestone video, humanmetrics.com. So for anybody who's interested in following along or doing one yourself, that is where you can find it. So the instructions, when responding, I'm going to be taking it live, so obviously I'm going to read the instructions so everybody's aware of what the parameters are for this. When responding to the statements, please choose the response you agree with most. If you are not sure how to answer, make your choice based on your most typical response or feeling in the given situation. To get a reliable result, please respond to all questions. When you are done with answering, press the Score It button at the bottom of the screen. Question number 1. You are almost never late for appointments. I'd have to say no on that. I'm frequently late, due to a lot of procrastination, really. You like to be engaged in an active and fast-paced job. No, not really. Number 3, you enjoy having a wide circle of acquaintances. Not especially. You feel involved when watching TV soaps. No. Number 5, you are usually the first to react to a sudden event, for instance, the telephone ringing or an unexpected question. Probably not. You feel the world is founded on compassion. Well, I think that's a little bit overly idealistic, so we're going to go with no. You think that everything in the world is relative? Yes. Maybe it's a small yes. I don't know. Because that could be interpreted as justifying pretty much anything. I mean, if you're going to say it's relative, you would find it difficult to establish sort of a objective moral code, wouldn't you? So we're going to move that to a little yes. Strict observance of the established rules is likely to prevent attaining a good outcome. Yes. Is it difficult to get you excited? Fairly. When making a decision, you rely more on your feelings than on analysis of the situation. No, that's a strong no. You often think about humankind and its destiny. Yes. You believe the best decision is one that can be easily changed. No, because that's sort of a compromised position. Generally, that I find that a very undesirable trait. The person who just won't, stake out their position on something. I mean, I've seen that happen way too many times in Ask Me Anythings on Reddit, where you were hoping to get an answer from somebody who you know, some famous personality, and you ask them a serious question, and they give you a specious answer in which they are basically just thumbing their nose at you. In other words, refusing to answer it, so they give you a facetious answer. You often ponder the root cause of phenomena and things. It's a little ambiguous. I'd have to say I'm uncertain about that one. You prefer to act immediately rather than speculate about various options. It depends on the situation. How critical is what I'm acting upon? How critical is the situation? So I'm going to go no, small no. You trust reason rather than feelings. No, maybe it's just me, but is there anybody who can honestly answer this as no? I mean, is there somebody who would say, I'm throwing reason out the window in favor of feelings? It's a different mindset. So we're going to go no. Number 16. You are inclined to rely more on improvisation than on prior planning. No, I do a lot of planning. You spend your leisure time actively socializing with a group of people, attending parties, shopping, etc. It's pretty emphatic no. You usually plan your activities in advance. Yes, I do love a very reliable schedule. I should say I don't appreciate things being thrust on you at the last minute. Your actions are frequently influenced by your emotions. This is very similar to the other one. And no, they're not. You are a person somewhat reserved and distant in communication. Probably. You know how to put every minute of your time to good purpose. Probably not as much as I should. You often contemplate the complexity of life. Fairly often. I mean, if you can whittle that question down, a lot of these questions are quite open-ended, to be honest. In my opinion, that can be interpreted in a multitude of ways. The complexity of life could refer to it biologically, in which case I do not often contemplate biology. It's more of a philosophical contemplation. After prolonged socializing, you feel you need to get away and be alone. Yeah, to some extent. You often do jobs in a hurry. Well, see, that sort of implies a compromise on quality of work. I would say when I commit to a job, I like to focus on getting it done and not being disrupted. So in other words, not a great multitasker because I find that I lose focus way too easily doing that. So we're going to give it a small yes. You easily see the general principle behind specific occurrences. Really can't decide what is meant by it, to be honest. You frequently and easily express your feelings and emotions. Well, see, the interesting thing about it is not because I can't, right? Is it because much of the time it is simply irrelevant, how I feel about a given subject. Now, what I think about a given subject is a different matter entirely. Because when it comes to feeling, a gut feeling, how objective is that, really? You can't base it on a lot. Well, I got a gut feeling, and what are we going to do with that? Not a whole lot. But now if you can actually think through a scenario where whatever we're talking about, it comes to an unfavorable conclusion, then hey, that's worth talking about. Number 27, you find it difficult to speak loudly. Well, I'm not somebody who yells, so we're going to go yes. As a matter of fact, that's a big yes, because whenever I do speak loudly, people generally, they misinterpret it. So I've probably been environmentally conditioned a bit to be even more reserved than I might otherwise be. Number 28, you get bored if you have to read theoretical books. Some theoretical books, yes, others, no. So we're going to go with no, I can tolerate them. You tend to sympathize with other people. Generally, not really. I mean, I can understand, I can empathize with them, not sympathize. I'm not sure if there's a huge distinction there between the two, but I think it is significant enough to give that a no. To me, empathy is basically putting yourself in another person's situation and being able to see the world from their perspective, whereas sympathy is more like a benevolent kind of worrying over somebody's situation, which generally tends to be less fortunate than your own. Number 30, you value justice higher than mercy. Now, that's an interesting question. Spare the rod, spoil the child? I'd have to say uncertain on that. 31, you rapidly get involved in the social life of a new workplace. No, I'm generally a more independent sort of person. 32, the more people you speak to, the better you feel. That's a pretty strong no. I actually become worn out by that. If I have to contact a lot of people, I will generally dread, the hours leading up to that interaction. Number 33, you tend to rely on your experience rather than on theoretical alternatives. Experience is too subjective to be a reliable indicator of a lot of stuff in the world, so we're going to do no. As a rule, you proceed only when you have a clear and detailed plan, probably to an extreme yes. 35, you easily empathize with the concerns of other people. I wouldn't say easily, I can, so we're going to do a small yes. Often you prefer to read a book than go to a party. Sure. As a matter of fact, that's a big sure. So, I mean, when I have to explain this away, there isn't a whole lot of constructive activity that you're going to be engaging in at a party, whereas reading a book can when I think about reading a book, I think about reading instruction manuals, believe it or not. I'm not a fan of fiction, so that's what I think of when I say read a book. But, they could be talking about reading fiction, and that definitely wouldn't apply to me, and it obviously wouldn't be constructive. So that's what I mean when I say a lot of these questions are ambiguous, and it depends upon how you as a person interpret them. Number 37, when with a group of people, you enjoy being directly involved and at the center of attention. Now, this may come as strange given the fact that I have a channel on YouTube, but no, I actually don't. It's a new sort of feeling to be recognized within any sort of sphere or community, to be recognized for the work that I do. Obviously, some of the work I do is attention grabbing, but yeah, that's a bit new. Number 38, you are more inclined to experiment than to follow familiar approaches. The problem with experimenting is it's usually inefficient. And the way the world is, most likely there will be somebody who found the optimal way to do something already. But at the same time, familiar approaches can really narrow down the scope of what you're working on. But I'm going to do no. I favor experimentation, but its practicality in the real world is limited given the number of people who just have tried these things out. I mean, more than I have. I'm not going to be arrogant enough to think that I really have something original to come up with. Number 39, you are strongly touched by the stories about other people's troubles. I find a lot of them compelling, not necessarily touched. I wouldn't be signing a change.org petition for any of them. But it is, like I said, it's compelling to hear what their perspective is on the world. So for different reasons, I'm going to do the no for that one, though. Number 40, deadlines seem to you to be of a relative nature rather than absolute importance. Well, since I answered a question of a relative nature, much higher in this list, and I answered that one positively in terms of whether the world is relative, we're going to stand by that position. Number 41, you prefer to isolate yourself from outside noises. Now, outside noises is an interesting concept. When I'm generally out and about doing things, I will be listening to audiobooks or podcasts or music. So it's not that I don't like noises, it's that I generally want the noises that I solicit myself. So that would be, I'm really kind of uncertain down there. Not sure what they meant by that question, to be honest. Number 42, for you it is easier to gain knowledge through hands-on experience than from books or manuals. Once again, another good or thought-provoking question, because while I certainly do enjoy hands-on experience, a lot of my learning comes through books and manuals. So in other words, it's very theoretical. So I'm going to say yes, because technically it is easier to actually do something. Well, usually it's a combination of the two. You read about it, then you do it, and that helps commit it to memory. Number 43, you think that almost anything can be analyzed. I think that is it's an interesting position to take on it, because it makes some pretty wide-sweeping assumptions about, where technology will be going in the future. For example, like right now, we really can't analyze a whole lot of things related to the brain, but there is no telling in the future whether or not that will be possible and to what extent it will. So I think it is most certainly a possibility that everything could be analyzed in the future. At the moment, I don't think it is. So we're going to do a yes, because there is a potential possibility that could be the case. A likely potential that will be the case sometime in the future, given the scaling up of computing power. You have smaller and smaller devices capable of doing what a computer 10 years ago, what you needed a desktop to do 10 years ago. Number 44, for you, no surprises is better than surprises. No surprises are better than surprises. I'm just saying. Good or bad ones? Well, I don't like bad surprises, so minimize your maximum regret. We're going to say no, because we want to make sure there are no bad surprises, so we will also eliminate any potential good ones in the process, but at least we will be minimizing, I keep getting it wrong. We will be minimizing our maximum regret. You take pleasure in putting things in order. Yes, despite my very disorganized nature, I do enjoy the feeling you get after you finish rearranging or tidying things up. You feel at ease in a crowd. No, I would generally stay away from them. Crowds of people are really unpredictable. They have a very herd mentality, and in certain situations can be really no more different, or they're not a whole lot different than being in a herd of animals, given their unpredictable nature. Number 47, you have good control over your desires and temptations. Most of the time, yes. Number 48, you easily understand new theoretical principles. That sounds unnecessarily bogged down inside scientific jargon. Once again, to be consistent, I did say that I can understand concepts in theory, so we're going to go with yes. Number 49, you usually place yourself nearer to the side than in the center of the room. Now that is an oddly specific question in a sea of very ambiguous ones. Probably yes. Number 50, when solving a problem, you would rather follow a familiar approach than seek a new one. The answer to that, once again, is rather complicated, because I can appreciate the creativity involved in seeking out a new solution, but at the same time, most likely there is a better solution that somebody else has already established, and I am all in favor of going with the best solution to any given problem. 51, a thirst for adventure is something close to your heart. No. When considering a situation, you pay more attention to the current situation and less to the possible sequence of events. No, I probably have a issue with overthinking situations and how they could possibly result. Number 53, when solving a problem, you consider the rational approach to be the best. Once again, in terms of consistency, we're answering yes. Number 54, you find it difficult to talk about your feelings. This is almost a rephrasing of a question we had earlier. Well, it's not that it's difficult. It is that the vast majority of the time, it is irrelevant to the topic. People tend to inject their feelings into conversations that should be more about objective facts, and I think that does a disservice to a lot of the conversations. You get the whole hysterical, won't somebody think of the children responses to questions. It stifles conversation because it gets the outrage machine in motion. And, you're not going to be dealing with an outrage machine on a logical playing field. You have to meet them in their emotional outrage. So I don't think it does anybody a service. So we're going to say yes, but for different reasons. Number 50, the question is open to interpretation, and that's how I interpreted it. Number 55, your decisions are based more on the feeling of a moment than on thorough planning. So in other words, on whims, no, they're not. Number 56, you prefer to spend your leisure time alone or relaxing in a tranquil atmosphere. Once again, this is one of those questions where I do enjoy my time alone. However, I am not in a state of silence. I'm not isolated from noise necessarily, because I'll listen to, like I said, YouTube even, a lot of YouTube, people talking. And that's not tranquil, but it is alone in my space. So we're going to say yes. Number 57, you feel more comfortable sticking to conventional ways. That is another interesting question, because a lot of the times the reason convention has sort of established itself is because it has been proven to be the most effective way of achieving some end result. However, I think there's a lot of conformity involved in convention that often stifles innovation. So I would have to say no. Number 58, you were easily affected by strong emotions. No. Number 59, you are always looking for opportunities. I think to an extent, yes. I am largely opportunistic, but guided by a set of principles that I have given great consideration. So take that for what you will. Number 60. As a rule, current preoccupations worry you more than your future plans. Not really. 61. It is easy for you to communicate in social situations. Probably not. I always overthink what I am about to say. Number 62. You rarely deviate from your habits. That is true. Number 63. You willingly involve yourself in matters which engage your sympathies. Not usually. I mean, what is the definition of sympathies? Would that be my interests? Because sympathies could sort of be a synonym for interests. So, I mean, if we're talking about interests, we're talking about stronghold kingdoms here. You willingly involve yourself in matters that engage your interests in stronghold kingdoms, then it would apply. But we're going to go uncertain on that one. It's a question too ambiguous for me to really stake a claim on. Number 64, you easily perceive various ways in which events could develop. I can perceive various ways, but is it easy? Well, we're just going to go with yes on that, I think. And my score is, once again, INTJ. I have scored pretty consistently. I've never actually scored as a different type doing this test. I've done it a few times before. And I've always given a rationale for the reason I answer the majority of the questions the way I do, because, as I expressed before, a lot of those AMAs, I don't appreciate people who just throw out random answers. You need a justification for why you gave that answer, I think, a lot of the time. And the whole, oh, I'm so random, it's funny thing is really, it's overplayed a lot because it lacks any sort of sincerity, and it just wastes people's time in general because you're not being sincere. You know, why would I want to watch your insincere opinion of something? It's self-defeating in its purpose. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.